Welcome to City Services Monthly. I'm your host, Donnie Turlington. Every month on City Services Monthly, we'll be joined by people who are making a difference in the lives of Greensboro's residents. This month, my guest is Jim Westmoreland. Jim, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Donnie. Good to be here this afternoon.
Now, Jim, you're the newly named city manager for the city of Greensboro. Talk about how exciting, or I guess exciting is the word you use, but talk about being named city manager.
Absolutely. Well, I've been on the job now as a city manager. This is my second week. But I'm not a stranger to the organization. I've been in Greensboro now for at least 15 years and have served in different roles with the city. I really feel honored and privileged to have the opportunity to serve as the city manager for Greensboro. As you know, Greensboro has a long legacy of leadership and city managers that have worked in the city before, including our former city manager, Denise Turner-Roth, who just went on to another position in Washington, D.C. It's an awesome responsibility to have a chance to really lead an organization like our city. With all the employees, with the resources that we have, and really when we think about how we make a difference in the lives of people in this community.
Now, for those folks who maybe don't understand what a city manager really does or really is, you hear a lot of times in the private sector, it may be the position is compared to being a CEO. But talk about the role itself and what does city manager really mean?
It's an awesome, rewarding, very demanding role in the city. And I'll hit with awesome first of all. Again, it is an awesome responsibility to be able to work in this level at in the organization and really to know that you're accountable for helping to provide services each and every day to the citizens of Greensboro. With over 277,000 people in the city and all the things that we do and services we provide, there's always something going on that you're trying to pay attention to and to make sure that you're doing as good as you can and that we from a city perspective are doing as good as we can. Rewarding every day that we're out there, every day that the men and women in the city get up and come to work and really do things to make a difference in this community. It's rewarding. As I always say, it's the little things that make the biggest difference. It's those little things that we do to provide services in Greensboro at a very high level. It's rewarding to understand that, you know, when we go home at night, things have happened correctly. The trash has been picked up. Those folks who have attended a Parks and Recreation program have felt good about their experience with the city of Greensboro. If we have a public safety issue, we've got the backing of our police and fire and Guilford Metro 911 services that are there for us each and every day. So that's rewarding and fulfilling. And then demanding. The job of the CEO of the city is certainly very demanding in terms of the amount of time and attention it takes to really be effective in this role. But the good news is I've got a very strong commitment and passion to lead and to serve. Really enjoy the time that I'm able to put in with the organization. I won't kid you though, from time to time I do get a call from my wife late in the afternoon, early evening, asking where I'm at, wanting me to come home and devote some more time there. So it's a tough role. I think that I am getting a sense now for sort of the balance that I need to project. I have some personal goals to get back into doing more with health and recreation kinds of activities. But I am blessed, and this is really just a very interesting role for me to serve as effectively, as you said, the CEO of the city of Greensboro.
Jim, talk about your career path and sort of where you started and how you arrived at this point. I don't know that there's a lot of folks who start out their career and get a degree in engineering, and then it ends up resulting in being a city manager. So talk about that early part of your career.
Well, it's interesting. You know, I was thinking about that the other day. Of, you know, how did I end up here with the city of Greensboro as far as the city manager? And in talking with other city managers across the state, I think that we've all ended up in this role somewhat differently. Again, when I look back at my time and upbringing, I grew up in Winston-Salem. Spent a lot of time during the summer working, doing plumbing jobs with my grandfather. He was a plumber in Winston-Salem. And also my father, we spent some time working at his job. He worked at R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company. And I think that's really where I sort of established my sense to want to serve and work with people and my work ethic. But I graduated from North Forsyth High School in Winston-Salem, went on to NC State University, obtained a civil engineering degree there from NC State with a concentration in transportation. So I spent the formative parts of my career really in transportation, engineering, operations, and safety. Spent some time working with the NCDOT before I was recruited away from there in 1996 to come serve with the city's Department of Transportation. Served in a role there as the DOT director for about 10 years and assistant city manager for 2. But as I was thinking about this and really what sort of, I guess, changed my perspective about both leadership and wanting to lead the organization at a different level, I sort of track it back to an opportunity that I had back in 2005 to attend the School of Government at UNC Chapel Hill on Municipal Administration. And in that particular course, they taught us all about city government, city functions. To me, it was interesting. I was able to better connect the dots of city government to things that we do in the city of Greensboro, why we do it, as it relates to local ordinances, state law, federal requirements, and sort of better define for me the role of a city manager. So from that point forward, I started pursuing additional and different kinds of career opportunities, and from the city's perspective, transitioned from the DOT director to an assistant city manager back in 2008. Then I left the city in 2009 to go work with the State Department of Transportation, where I served as a deputy secretary in Raleigh for about 3 years before going back into the private sector for a year. But what was interesting about that is in the time that I spent with the state DOT and the time that I spent with the private sector, there was one thing that I kept missing, and that really was this connection that I have to serve people, and really what I say is the impact that you have in local government to really impact the lives of people in what they do. So when I received a call or talked with our former city manager back in 2012 about the opportunities of returning back to the city and serving as a deputy, it wasn't a hard decision for me to make. I love this community. I call it my second adopted home because I am from Winston-Salem originally. Still have family in Winston-Salem. But I always recall growing up as a young boy coming over here, and Greensboro was always viewed as the big city, the progressive city in North Carolina, sort of on the cutting edge of a lot of different things that were happening. We would come over here to shop at Friendly Center. We would come over here to attend basketball tournaments and concerts at the Greensboro Coliseum. So for some reason, I always had a gravitational pull to come to Greensboro and spend time here. But as I think about my role as the city manager now and sort of how I've gotten here, again, I would say it's probably sort of one part related to my formal training and background and upbringing, and really just a desire to serve people and solve problems and feel fulfilled about how I'm able to help others. Second part is just I've been blessed with good opportunities. People have always seen things in me and given me opportunities to help out, excel, do things differently. And then thirdly, just the connection that I have with this organization and the people who work in the city of Greensboro, all of our employees, those who are just dedicated beyond belief in terms of what they do and how they get up each and every day to make sure that the little details are taken care of, that we from a city perspective operate well, function well, and then hopefully provide an exceptional quality of life to our citizens.
I've heard you say on numerous occasions that the little things make the biggest difference.
That's right.
And I think one of the things that people often don't realize as you talk about city employees is how the majority of city employees really strive to make that difference in the lives of the residents that they serve. And a lot of us come to work every day thinking about the fact that that's where our paychecks come from.
Right.
Talk about your workforce and how you're kind of rallying the troops to make sure that that those city services aren't missing a beat. We're under new leadership.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that
Yeah.
have changed, but the small things make a big difference in sort of what the workforce is doing to make that happen.
Yeah, that's a good question. Here's a couple of things that we're currently doing. First of all, like you said, there's been a lot of change that's happened in this organization over the past 5 to 6 years now. Effectively, the organization's gone through 3 or 4 different city managers, all been great people, but as I've come to find out, with every change in leadership, even with good people, there's different styles and leadership methods that those particular people have. There's different initiatives that they want to pursue and implement. And certainly city councils change too. Our city council body goes through an effective change every 2 years when we get in new city council members. And every city council is different. even though you have some of the same members in this city council that you had in the last city council. They're different. Their priorities are different. Their focus is different. Sort of the way that they come about doing their business is different. So all of this creates just an element of change within the organization that can create what I call fatigue in terms of, with every change that you have, you really have to give the organization a chance to become more stable in what you do and more predictable in your operations. So one thing that we're really focusing on right now, and again, I have a desire to be here long-term in the city and really serve the citizens at a very high level along with the city team. But we're really focusing on those elements of organizational stability and predictability. We have a lot of great things going in this organization. We have our MAP program where we're focused on specific goals to really drive the organization forward, including economic development, customer services, things that we're doing with infrastructure, public safety, elements of transparency, accountability, stewardship. All very important things, all things that connect to the core values of the organization. We need to take some time to really push those things forward to the next level. I sense from my time back with the organization that all of our employees are just extremely excited about ways that they can make a difference and really ways that we can implement some of the things that are already out there for us. And again, all of our employees, each and every day, it is really the little things that make a big difference. I mean, the things that really give me great fulfillment, and I think our employees great fulfillment, is when we receive, when a job is well done, and sometimes when we get credit, and then a lot of times when we don't get credit for it, that's okay. It's the little things that happen. It's the time when somebody has raked their leaves to the curb, and the leaf truck is coming down the street, and instead of just sort of going by the person that's raking the leaves, the crew will stop. They'll help the person get the leaves to the curb. It's those little notes that you get. It's the little things like with the recent fire that we had down off of Elm Street, the warehouse fire, where the 4 firefighters were trapped underneath the collapsed roof. It's the little things where the community rallies around that, where they bring food, where they bring well wishes, where they want to tell the firefighters and the police officers and the 911 service providers how much they mean to them. That really makes a big difference. And then from a daily basis, little things like customer service, just listening to people, trying to best understand what it is that they need, how we can do it better, and then just telling people thank you. And like you said, really understanding that at the end of the day, we're here to serve the community. We work for the taxpayers in this community. We value that. We appreciate that. So I think from our perspective, it is those little things that make the biggest difference.
Jim, if you could name, you've talked about service and now leadership in 60 seconds or less. If you could name one person who's made an impact on your life from a leadership standpoint, who would that be?
I think I would have to say former city manager Ed Kitchen. Ed is a consummate professional. He's a consummate city manager. I really admire him. I really respect him. I have other people that I certainly look at as mentors in my both professional capacity and in my life. But as it relates to sort of City of Greensboro operations and somebody who continues to make a difference in this community every day, somebody who's well respected and known as a leader who can make a difference. And at the end of the day, the highest common denominator, as I like to say, is Ed really drives for things that will make this community great.
Jim, thanks so much for your time. I'm really enjoying the conversation.
Thank you, Donnie.
We'll take a quick break, but we'll be back with more with Jim Westmoreland in just a minute. Welcome back to City Services Monthly. We're here with Jim Westmoreland, the City Manager for the City of Greensboro. Jim, I know you've already talked a little bit about what some of the goals and aspirations you might have for yourself and the organization, but talk specifically a little bit more about what some of those goals might be.
Well, I guess I would say there's a couple of things that sort of drive what I do in the city as the city manager. The first and probably most important thing that I do is respond to City Council, and we've spent some time with them over the past couple of weeks helping them identify sort of their vision and their priority for the city, and we're currently compiling that information. I think that's what's interesting to me is there's some common themes and things that are sort of emerging from that and things that we'll be focused on as the organization over the course of the next many months. One of those theme areas is economic development. There's been a lot of discussion about what do we do as a city organization as it relates to economic development. What do we provide in the way of services? What do we depend on others to help us do in the way of providing services? I sense that this city council really wants to focus on economic development at a very high level. And I think that we're all wanting to leverage both the existing assets that we have in the community plus the resources of the city to try to both grow and retain businesses, both investment and job creation here in the city, and we'll be focused on that. Certainly when you think about the areas of economic development in the city, the three sort of priority areas that continue to come to the forefront include economic development in East Greensboro. I think that's extremely important to this council. They want to find a way to help both grow and cultivate investment in new jobs in East Greensboro, and there's some strategies that we're looking at there that I think will be important as we go forward. Certainly the airport area remains a very hot commodity for us. We recently had the Boeing proposal that we pursued. We weren't successful with, obviously that stayed in Seattle, Washington, but we think that we're well positioned from the standpoint of our aviation assets and more importantly our transportation assets in this community. When you think about the special and unique characteristics that we have in the way of our airport, in the way of our rail system, certainly in the way of our highway system, we've got all the ingredients here to really be a spoke and a hub of the whole U.S. Southeast as it relates to aviation, transportation, warehousing, and logistics. And I think you'll see us continue to leverage that at a very high level in the days to come. And then finally, downtown. Downtown is really starting to come back to us in terms of some new exciting development proposals that are out there. Things that sort of, I rattle off the top of my head, include the work that we're currently doing with a new proposed downtown university campus. They call it Union Square campus at this time. The other development that council recently acted on last week was a proposal to help incentivize the development of a new luxury hotel in downtown Greensboro, which if it stays on its current path is currently due to be under construction sometime this spring with a projected opening date of August of 2015. Again, it's a Wyndham hotel, so they're trying to time it in conjunction with the fantastic Wyndham tournament that we have here in Greensboro. And then certainly the Stephen Tanger Performing Arts Center, along with the new LeBauer Park that's planned for downtown. So there's a lot of exciting development that's currently taking place. There's also other developments that are being planned downtown as well. So economic development is certainly a high priority for council. And I take a lot of my cues, and we take a lot of our cues directly from council. And part of that is, as a council manager form of government, the city council really sets the policy and the policy direction for the city. As the manager, I'm there along with the staff to implement that policy. So again, economic development is a very high priority for this city council.
Talk a little bit about what to us as staff feels like it's more of a year-round process, but to the public it's sort of between now and the early spring is a very public process, which is developing the budget for the city. We're required by state to pass a balanced budget every year. Of course, I think everyone would realize that the current economic environment means that our revenues and our expenses are kind of, it's tight fighting that battle every year. So, but I know the city is doing some things differently this year, and it's sort of the ball kind of got started rolling and going in this direction last year, and you're kind of picking up and running with it this time.
Yeah, and that's a great item to talk about for a little bit. I think that we historically, and again I'll say historically, being over the past 5 to 7 years, have found ourselves organizationally in some very significant budget challenges. Part of that is we've always, it seems like, had a gap between our expected revenues versus projected expenses, and we've had to consistently go through a process to look at service cuts and reductions along with some enhancements, but sort of paring ourselves back both in terms of the services we provide, the resources we have, our FTE equivalent of resources, human resources that we have to provide those services. So it's been tough. The other thing that's compounded that, as everybody knows, the economy has not been very good over the past several years since 2008 with a Great Recession. I strongly think, and there's some indicators out there, that we are slowly recovering from that, but it's not nearly at the pace that it was back, certainly pre-recession. And we're continuing to struggle with that as it relates to increases in our property tax base and other taxes for the city that sort of provide the revenues that we need to be effective in what we do. So the budget process is certainly complicated for us. It's complicated again this year as we get into the 13-14 and then 14-15 budget development process. We're looking at a deficit again that we're going to have to organizationally work through. Right now it's projected to be about $5 million, and it doesn't seem like a lot of money. It's a lot of money to us. Every dollar that we have in the city that we use is certainly important and valued in how we use that resource. But $5 million is really tough organizationally to find ways that we're going to pare that out of the budget again, knowing that we're, from my perspective, probably as resource lean and efficient as we've been since I've been with the organization now in 1996. So we're having to do things this year that are a little bit different than they have been in the past. One thing that I've focused on directly with the city team is I want to make sure that a couple of things are taken care of before we go to city council and we start looking at sort of budget reductions and those kinds of strategies this year. One is the first thing we want to do is to look at our programs that we provide in the city. We've gone through as an organization and basically inventoried all the programs and all the services that we provide. Each department has gone through and they've looked at now how do those programs that we have in the city actually align with what we're required to do from the standpoint of either local, state, or federal requirements. How do they align with our MAP goals? How do they align with council priorities? What are the service demands? What are the costs? So we're really looking at our programs much differently now than we have in the past to identify what are those programs that are from our perspective either least used or least effective in terms of providing some kind of common good to the community. So we're looking at those pretty closely. The other thing that we're doing is we're conducting a series of efficiency studies in the organization. We're looking at areas in terms of both programs and processes that we have that we think could be fine-tuned. I'm really a person that likes to focus on continuous process and other kinds of improvements in the organization. I believe that we can always do a better job, that there's things out there that can always be both improved and streamlined in terms of some of the services and processes that we have in the organization. So we're looking at those efficiency studies to do a couple things. First of all, to give us some indication about areas where we may be able to reduce costs, give us some indication about areas where we may be able to increase capacity. And what I mean by that is we very well may find through some of these studies that there's a different way that we could do things and increase the availability of resources to provide a service where we don't have to either increase resources or increase staff down the road. So we're running it more like a business in terms of how we're actually looking at the efficiency of the organization. And again, I'm big on processes. I'm just always sort of focused on things that we do organizationally. Is there a better way to do it? Is there a quicker way to do it that better serves sort of the focus of what we're asked to do in the city in terms of providing quality services at the lowest cost to our citizens. So from that perspective, the budget process, again, we're early on now. We're in the 1st of February here. We're early on in the process, and like you said, that we've got a responsibility between now and the end of June to bring a balanced budget to the forefront and have council approve that. As we've done in the past, the City Council this year will be focused on learning more about our organization internally and what we're doing to be effective and efficient in the services that we provide. They certainly will look for us to get out within the city to talk to citizens directly about their priorities for services that we provide and things that we can do better or even different as a city organization. And again, what's a little bit different about our budget process compared to the private sector is the private sector typically operates on a calendar year basis. Our budget process effectively runs from July 1st to June to the end of June. So we're a little bit different from that regard. But I do think that this year is, again, it's going to be a very tough budget process for the city organization. But I think we're smarter. I think that we've got some definitive strategies of things that we're going to look at this year. And again, at the end of the day, what I really want to do is to create something within the city where we create a sustainable budget going forward, that we don't get into the same process every year of having to look at a deficit that we're having to cut or reduce. I think that, I mentioned a while back about the issue of organizational fatigue. I think that we're also that way from the standpoint of cuts and reductions. We want to get more stable. We want to have a more sustainable budget and budget process for the city, so we know that as we go into year two, we'll understand what resources we have available, and then hopefully both from the council's perspective and from the community's perspective, give them some additional latitude about things that are important that need to happen, where we don't have to feel so impacted by cuts or reductions in the organization that have to be made.
Jim, certainly sounds like there's a lot on your plate. I know you're attacking it with vigor. I see you working every day. You're the first guy here and the last guy to leave, it seems like. But we really appreciate your service to the city.
Thank you.
Well, Jim, thank you. Appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, Don.
That's all the time we have for this month's City Services Monthly, but be sure to tune in March. We'll have another guest, and we'll talk more about how the city of Greensboro is serving you, Greensboro's residents.